All right, so why don't we get started? It's good to see everyone. This is our October episode, which is our 9th of the year. And as most of you know by now, this is not a normal gardening show. This is, although we're all very passionate about getting our hands into the soil, it's also about exploring how to make the world a better place through gardening in our backyards. And it is about exploration, about how all these things that we're interested in the soil, in the pollinators, in the compost, and how they all work together. And I think for me, at least, it's slowly how all these pieces put together. Trying to get to a bigger picture and to make some changes. And recently I started to put a couple of things together. And from perspective of fractals, I think one of the definitions of fractals is an object or shape that is created by the same smaller image of it. So it's like a different scale, it's the same image. And if you look at the whole planet, it's like mostly water. The planet is mostly water. And then you look at our human body, and we are mostly water. And it's just the mirror. We mirror the planet on a different scale. And when the planet's water gets polluted, also our internal system gets polluted. And when we learn about the microbiome in the soil, and we're learning also about the microbiome in our bodies and what makes the microbiome in the soil healthy, and the health of the soil, when we are in harmony with that, that creates a healthy microbiome in us. So it's just little by little, we are learning how how these things that we are all interested in and bringing to the table here add up together, and slowly how it's important. So and the other thing that we're learning is this is a once a month presentation, but in the lead up to this evening, we have several organizing meetings, and during these organizing meetings, we bring things that we've been exploring on our own to these meetings, and we have incredible discussions. And finally, about a week before tonight, we start putting together the actual show. But the things that we talk about, even though we won't present it tonight, is just helps form tonight. And they're not exclusive meetings. you're all welcome to join us and or join in these conversations. Because everybody comes, with a wide range of experiences and backgrounds, and it all contributes.
Welcome.
So, so with that introduction and invitation, we should start. Preseda has to leave early, so we're going to start with what she's been working, which is a pollinator hedgerow that's been planted in Lily's backyard, but we hope it will be replicated for the town of Winchester along the Aberdona River, and maybe Anne has something to say about that. So, Priscilla, you want to take it away?
Thank you, Fred. I would like to add one thing. I think that part of the fun of our conversations is that we do have such different backgrounds, and it is just hair-raisingly great how complementary we are and how the stuff plays in these different arenas. It's been pretty special. So yeah, you're all welcome to these conversations. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So I'm talking about how to maximize habitat, and you'll see how this feeds into the plantings that Fred alluded to. Basically, I feel like every time I talk, I build on something we've done before, and this is integrating it all and taking it into 3D. We want to just maximize the amount of planting you can do, right? We've been planting on the ground, and now we're talking about planting as high as we can, as well as on the ground. So we're going to get habitat in 3 dimensions and year round and all those other good things. This is Lily's yard. Margot did a great film. Lily did a terrific presentation, which you will see shortly. So let's talk for a moment about the history of hedgerows. What is a hedgerow? So I think that we think of it culturally, we think of it as it's a barrier, a growing barrier. A lot of them have thorns and spines. They keep livestock in and people out. They can keep wild animals out. In some countries, they're used extensively for that. England has a long history of hedgerows. It's a wonderful sort of natural fence. You don't need to make any materials. You don't need to cut down trees. Just use the stuff that's there. They have some that are over 1,000 years old. Japan, I've seen some that are 500 plus years old, particularly around castles and old, castles, because they were very much a barrier. But there's so much more than a barrier. And I think that that is a unfortunate way of looking at them. It turned out in England during the Thatcher years, there was a great deal of push to increase productivity, and a lot of hedgerows were cut down, and there was a plummeting, huge losses in birds and small mammals in particular. The hedgerows serve as homes for a lot of creatures that have smallish territories and home ranges, and they are corridors for bigger wildlife that can walk safely among humans and sheep and domestic animals in general along these corridors. And people who objected to cutting these down said this would happen, and guess what? It did happen, and there is now some push to return some of that, but you don't easily replace 1,000-year-old hedgerow. It's kind of it's a tough thing. And of course, it's hard to take farmland back from people who are getting money off of it. So let's talk a little bit how you would plant a hedgerow. A hedgerow is not the same as a hedge. A hedge is typically a uniform thing, same plant, lots of it in a row, and it might or might not have any habitat value. I'm talking specifically about a mix of woody plants, trees and or shrubs, depending on the height, and thickly interplanted. like 75% of the spacing is red and white, or closer than that, because you do want the branches to grow in together to each other so that you create a real barrier. It might help to think of it as being modular. So the unit is a tree, 3 to 5 shrubs, plus or minus, a thorny vine or thorny shrub. That's one of my particular interests because it is very helpful for protecting birds' nests against various predators, cats, for example, also snakes, depending on where you are. And then a bunch of perennials in the at the very bottom understory, and those obviously go in brackets because those are not woody. But that's the basic unit. And the nice thing about thinking about it like this is that then you can think about having a lot of them in a row, or if you only have room for one, that's what you want to do. You can put 2 in different corners of the yard, and you can get a lot of variety using this basic formula over and over. It is, as Fred said, part of what we proposed in our, it was the proposal that we submitted to keep Massachusetts beautiful, which some of you know was funded. And we had conversation with the Conservation Commission, and they said, well, how many linear feet do you want and how many? And I said, it's fine, we can accommodate. You know, we'd like to do 8 or 10 of these units, but we can do more, we can do fewer. You just tell us where we can put them and we'll figure out the rest. So it's a nice way of thinking about it because it makes it manageable. Obviously, it's habitat in multiple dimensions. Some of these we've talked about before. You want to plant across the seasons. And again, this is building on the things we've been talking about in some of the 9 previous meetings we've had. Leaves, they're useful at all different life stages. They're new, mature, they're dead, or they're dropped as leaf mulch. Flowers themselves, the nectar, the pollen, spreading out the support for different species across the seasons. Fruits, whether they're mature or dry, or they're frozen and then more accessible to their predators. The bark, the sap, the new shoots, pretty much every single part of the tree contributes something to someone at some time in the year. And we want to add the dimension of 3, the third dimension, the space dimension, going up vertically so that you can get more bang for your buck. Now, again, you know this, we've talked about this before. You want native plants. I almost put duh after that, but I thought that could be misinterpreted. Year-round food and shelter for as many species as possible. One way to do that is to, if you plant several modules, is not to do all the same species in each module, but to do different species in different modules. Lily's hedgerow is a nice combination, some repetition and some novelty. You want to think about the hardiness of the plants, and in particular, think about the change in global temperatures and in rain. Temperatures have gone kind of crazy pretty fast. When I started gardening in Massachusetts, we were zone 5 mostly. We're now zone 7, and the last 2 winters have been zone 8. I know someone who planted a fig tree that used to frost to the ground and then grow back on its roots. The last 2 winters, it hasn't even had frost touch. It's doing that well. So keep that in mind when you're making your plant choices. So whatever works in your yard, you can make big modules and you can make little modules. You can put in trees that are going to be 90 feet. You can put in trees that are going to be 12 feet. You can do dwarf fruit trees with little bitty shrubs under them. It's about having the right proportions rather than the right absolute size. The ones that we proposed for the town include huge trees because they are in places where there's no electric wires and where there's no traffic, and they can really, really create a lot of habitat and a lot of carbon sequestration, because these leaves, when these trees are growing, they take a lot of carbon out of the atmosphere. So we were talking about, for the average yard, whatever that means, 25-foot sections, plus or minus. Again, depends a little bit also on your topography. If your yard is very hilly, you're going to want to take that into consideration when you lay out your plan. So I would say pin it on tree size, figure out what is the biggest tree that you can have or want to have, and then scale things up or down according to the tree. There is an amazing Japanese forestry method. It came out in the 80s. Miyawaki is the person who figured it out. And he has used it particularly in the tropics, where he puts stuff in at astonishing densities, like 100 times the density that everyone else has been planting them. And the results are that these things grow like crazy because they're competing with each other for the light. And you can imagine that it makes quite a dense habitat. It's been done in the Netherlands. I haven't found yet, but I'm still looking whether it's been done anywhere as temperate as Massachusetts. I kind of love the idea. I kind of don't see it happening in the suburb of Winchester, but I want to put it out there because it's pretty fun to think about. So how much care does a hedgerow take? Well, once it's established, it takes almost nothing. I mean, look at the woods. Nobody's taking care of the woods and they do fine. You're not going to be raking. And in fact, that's going to create a natural mulch from the leaves and the dead perennials, which are going to harbor salamanders and little toads and millipedes and centipedes and all kinds of wonderful creatures. And by not disturbing them, you allow them to live out their full life cycle right there in your yard. Theoretically, weeds are crowded out by the perennials that you plant. I note the theoretically because sometimes that works better than others depending on how aggressive the weeds are, whether you have poison ivy and a few other things. But overall, it kind of works that way. And you won't have to water once it's established. And by established, I mean after the first year mostly. Even the perennial flowers, I mean, I water mine when it gets, when we have 15 days of hot, dry, but you don't have to do much else. And I would say add water nearby because that will be good for all of the creatures that you're going to be attracting to this habitat. So that is a nutshell on habitat. And Margot has a film she's going to show about Lily's hedgerow. Margot, are you there?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing and she's going to.
Well, no, I'm going to. And can everyone see just a black screen?
Yeah.
my yard.
So there is, Lily prepared a wonderful up close. Can you see this? Yes. Of the yard. This is, sorry, not that. This is the before picture. You see that the neighbors are quite present, and greening was desirable. This is how it looks now after everything was put in. You can see all these new trees and shrubs, some evergreen fruit trees, flowering fruit trees. And these big trees were there before. So she interwove these. Again, all the new things in this nicely managed bed here. This is one of the pieces of pride. It's really important, I feel, for people to plant things that they love, not just that are good for the environment. This is a choice dogwood tree that can be seen from a key window in the house. Lily, help me out.
I'm sorry.
Help me out with this one. This was
These are some weeds that were there before. This is the before. This is if you scroll up a little more, you'll see there in progress. This is a page of the hedgerow before and after in progress.
so this is the work that was done.
It took 4 men 2 days to cut down all the stuff that we didn't want and to put the new ones in.
Here are the neighbors standing there ready to go.
Yeah.
Lily was very patient. She waited for a few months because there's so much work going on, so many people are doing this that she couldn't get the help to make it happen for quite a while. And then Shazam, Instant Garden, again, this is Demetra, who's unfortunately not here tonight. This is, which tree is this, Lily?
Yeah, one of the big trees was so heavy, so big and heavy. It took 3 men to move it. That was probably the dogwood.
Probably the dogwood. And then she did this fabulous quilt of all the things that the season
We hope.
fruits.
At maturity, yeah.
And she has lilac for her because that's what she wanted. Peaches, plums, cherries, other cherries, dogwood. This is aronia.
Yes, that's the aronia, yeah.
Aronia. And this is
Olives.
holly.
Olives.
These two,
Yeah, the elderberry
right?
and
Dogwood.
magnolias. Yeah,
Magnolia.
yeah.
This is also aronia? No, this is viburnum, and this is the aronia. And this is another viburnum.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty spectacular array through the year of food and color. These are the species. Could you see the names on the bottom?
Yep.
And then for your perusal later, this will be all posted. Lily prepared a very detailed documentation on everything that's there, its attributes, when it blooms, what it gives you, and so on. And we won't read you that, but that's going to be available for you to look at and decide what you want to. So that's a hedgerow in winter.
Lovely.
Questions, comments?
Fabulous, you guys. It's wonderful. It's great.
Thank you, Lily.
Yeah.
Well, we're hoping it'd be even nicer in the spring.
It will be. We'll need-
Yes, most of those are all flowering plant shrubs and trees. So hopefully it's be quite pretty in the spring, and then in the fall, a lot of berries and fruit. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to need a field trip in the spring.
No, absolutely, right? And then as we continue to inspire others, we'll just increase the duration of the trip. It's fabulous. Love it, Lily. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank Reseda.
Absolutely, yeah.
You are easy to work with.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
So was that about 50 feet?
Oh, it's more than that.
Yeah.
I think it's over 100. In fact, I can say, so when we started, we started, as can happen with these projects, as some of you have discovered, you start with a few plants and you think, oh, that's all I need. And then you realize, oh, look, and then there's this one and that one. We ended up, I think, with 23 or 24 plants. And Lily was like, I don't know where we're going to put all of these. We'll see, it'll be fine. And they get all in and she says, I need more plants. There's space over here and there's space over here. I'm like, yeah, that's now you're talking. So it's very, it's kind of like when you have a paintbrush and you paint, the windowsill and then you realize the room looks crummy and then you paint the room and then realize the hall looks, and then pretty soon you're in big time. So it turned out to be a really spectacular project.
Yeah.
Did you do any conditioning in the soil or you just went with the soil that's there? Did you do any soil test or?
Definitely in the soil, compost and mulch.
Compost and mulch mostly. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because they planted and put the original soil first and then put the compost on top of that and the mulch on top of the compost. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Linda, I did what you did. I got the biggest plants I could find.
No, I mean, I was actually noticing that and how big they are, right? It really does feel like instant. It's quite spectacular that way. And
Oh yeah.
they get bigger, but some of them are some of them actually designed to end up small, or are they likely to get huge?
I think probably the smallest, and you can tell me if that's true. Probably about 5 feet is the smallest, and the tallest is around 20, 25 feet. Yeah. So it should be
Wide.
quite big enough. Yeah.
It's just so spectacular. Yeah, I also, well, at so many levels, right? We could talk about this forever. It's fun to have these relationships in the yard too. I think that comment about how you see it from the window, it isn't just a tree outside, right? It becomes, your life and your neighbors, and then the neighbors want to see the tree and the life and the neighbors, and it just kind of perpetually populates. It's lovely.
And Lily had some unusual nut trees on the property. And that's really terrific. And they're beautiful, beautiful. And so that it was very much building in what was there, taking out what was invasive and non-native or unhealthy, and then replacing it with and showcasing some of what was already there. So I think that combination, she has stuff I haven't seen anywhere else in Winchester. So that was pretty exciting.
What sell some of the things? Do you recall, Priscilla?
One of them is it a butternut? No, it wasn't a butternut.
Hickory nut, I think.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it?
Hickory.
Oh, hickory. Yep.
Have you seen those around? I haven't seen one anywhere.
Yeah, we see them in White Lock Farm if you walk on the trails.
So somebody carried one over there. I mean, I don't know, but it's probably 3 feet, 4 feet tall and healthy. I mean, just radiant with health. It's going to be a spectacular specimen.
I hope so.
There's some huge ones up in North Andover at the Rolling Ridge. And they're thinking about collecting some of the nuts because they're definitely supposed to be very edible.
Oh, they're yummy. They're yummy.
And the nicest thing is it was given a gift from the birds, I guess. I didn't plant it.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking of the mixture of fruit trees and other woody plants. So, and you had mentioned that in general, you don't need to do much care, but you will need to do care for the fruit trees.
What kind of care are you thinking?
If you're really interested in harvesting the fruit, then you need to like, well, so like pruning and things like that.
So you may have more experience in this, but in my experience, they are so bred for fruit that the difference between what you get if you prune and what you get if you leave them alone is really not that big, that they often fruit so heavily. What's a bigger issue is how to keep the wildlife off of them if you want to keep the wildlife off of them. And you can try those cat nets. Might have to net the fruits. I'm lucky because I don't really care whether my fruits, I mean, I want somebody to enjoy them. It doesn't have to be me. So I don't really care. I think that's the real conundrum.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate to have one of the farmers from the farmers market come and visit us. And you know, she just humored me by looking at our fruit trees, and to be able to see those trees from a farmer's perspective, and he did a very dramatic pruning to be able to within the one tree, not to have branches compete with each other too close, or to be able to allow the tree to grow most efficiently.
Yeah, to get the sunlight in, right?
The sunlight, and to have one dominant branch. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot more manicuring.
And did he do it? How old are your plants? I know how old are your trees? I know they're about what, 3-4 years old.
2-3 years.
And he pruned them that early.
Yes. You can't. Yeah. If I guess he called it the leader trunk, and you can't start too early with those.
Uh-huh. And that fellow who you're talking to about coming, the fellow in Arlington, he also did something about fruit trees,
Right.
on his presentation.
Yep.
Well, I guess I have my work cut out for me.
I think you should ask Fred to come and help you.
Okay, great.
The knowledge I have is.
I'd like to be on that field trip too, because I've got some of the same issues. That I think I mentioned my peach tree had about 40 full-size peaches, and it's a teeny little thing. It was enough to, I mean, it made the branches look like they couldn't even hold it all. And it made me want to get my hands away from it and say, whatever you're doing is working. At the same time that I could imagine, when there are branches that cross and they rub, and then it makes more vulnerable spots for other things to come along. I just don't know enough. So I'd be interested in coming along for the training in your yard, Lily, and then I'll bring home what I learned.
Yeah, we should have a session or invite somebody who knows how to prune the trees, because I think that's going to be a big factor in growing fruits. And also the reason I understand that they thin the fruits is because, like you said, it's so heavy when they're done that they can actually break the branches.
Yeah, none actually broke, which I was also impressed about. I was monitoring it pretty close. It's like right outside our door. But that sense of, can you handle it? Can you not? Do you want help? Do you not? I think I so appreciate that sense that says it's figuring it out, and we need to honor sort of its journey and not intrude. We do so much intruding at the same time that a little help is a wise help doesn't need to be harmful.
Yeah, definitely. We need a session on pruning, that's for sure. Yeah, not just fruit trees either. I mean, all the perennials. And like my roses, I wish someone would come and help me with that. You know. Yeah.
Maybe we'll make sort of a traveling troupe that knows what to do and wander around to all of the grow local yards, you know?
That's true. That's good.
We'll,
Yeah.
Pied Piper approach. We'll have people follow us as they're learning for their own yard.
Yeah. How about you, Fred? You get a lot of fruits for your trees?
Yeah. So ours started out much smaller, but we were surprised how much we got. I'm not sure if it's because of the age or because we use the Neptune harvest kelp fertilizer, and we gave it a pretty healthy dose early in the spring. Or maybe it's just a combination of both.
Mm.
So earlier today, Perseid and I talked about the Miyawaki Japanese dense forest procedure. And it turns out that the city of Cambridge in Danahy Park put one in. So I think we're going to plan a little field trip to see how they did it, because as Perseid said, there aren't too many that are implemented in a temperate climate. We'll see how they're doing, and to find out who designed it and installed it. And maybe we can invite them to come.
That'd be cool. I used to live about 3 blocks from there. Yeah, I know it well. I know the before. I haven't seen the after.
Yeah, I used to play football on before.
Yeah.
So I think I have to go, but thank you. And if anybody has any other questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Margot.
Thank you, Preseda.
Thank you, Preseda.
Good night.
And I,
So for something completely different now, we've been trying to do this for the last couple of episodes. We've been looking at soil health, but we haven't really looked into growing food a lot. We haven't really discussed that. And there's a whole perspective of healthy soils grows healthy foods. And that's something that we've been missing. And it's affecting our health, our human health. And so Linda has been really interested in that perspective. And that goes back to addressing the microbiome in the soil and the microbiome in our health, in our guts, and the implications of what happens when that's missing. And so Linda's going to talk about that, and then I'll spend a few minutes on a citizen scientist project that will dig a little deeper into this. So, Linda.
okay. So I have, this is, I think maybe my second, but maybe my first PowerPoint ever. So bear with me. I'm about to share my screen. I've only shared it on Teams before, but let's hope this all works well. Do you guys see anything yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, let's see. If not, I can just read from it.
I remember when I was first learning, you had to like click it twice, and the second time it appears.
That worked.
You can see it?
Yep.
All righty then. And let me cancel this. Well, you're good. Okay. So basically, this was the charge I was given, how our physical health and well-being is directly connected to the health of the environment. And I kind of was playful and creative a bit in a couple different ways, but this is sort of where I'm headed. This, I think it would make sense for us to take a second on. And it really sets the tone for what I have enjoyed about this project. It's the height of scientific arrogance and human hubris to think that we can design fertilizers or fertigation or whatever we want to call it, that even comes close to mimicking what the natural microbiology of the soil can create and feed to these plants. It just astonishes me that, the tiny percent that we keep figuring out when we call it science identifies a few things that we know and so much that we don't know. And then we want to create according to this little bit that we've figured out and not honoring just the depth beyond. When we didn't have microscopes, we had no appreciation for this. And then the gut microbes weren't appreciated because there was a whole phase of science where we would only cultivate what could in a petri dish, but that would be out in the open oxygen. And it's only recently that we've been able to do testing of the gut microbiome through genetic testing, the same PCR that some of you have gotten maybe with your COVID. So just, who knows what's next? I just have a deep, deep appreciation. So the whole problem of health in soil, animal, plant, and human is one great subject. Look at the date on this. Sir Albert Howard, 1947. And we're finally coming around to going, oh yeah, right. So this is one from Carol, which I've always liked. It just sort of sets up the parallel between what's unhealthy about the gut. Healthy about the gut is the same story as the soil. It's one of my favorites. So basically, the quality of the soil determines the quality of the food grown, which determines the health. So there were many, many ways I could have organized this. In the end, I chose this. It's very clear to me this is an ongoing project for me, and it'll develop and expand in many levels, at many levels. This is also from Carol. Thank you. I think a wonderful way to see the evolution of what we're trying to do with food and health is to check this out. Take a moment. Healthy food versus junk food is where a lot of people start. I've had kids, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a child psychiatrist, and I do a lot of sort of nutritional, trying to get people healthy before we try to diagnose them. Sometimes we can avoid a diagnosis altogether. But healthy food versus junk food, I've had kids say to me, why do they call it junk food? Why don't they call it junk? And it's fascinating what's happened. We'll go into each of these a little bit more detail, but this is the first step, is to have it actually be food. The next, and this is a huge transformation of my understanding, I've talked about it before, is to be free of toxins. Like the organic movement was to be free of toxins. Organic doesn't mean nutrient dense. Organic doesn't mean healthy plant. Organic only really means, it ideally does, real organic does, but it's been kind of like a lot of things, it's sort of been taken advantage of. And so I've talked a lot about glyphosate and all of that, which we could go into another time again, but the level 2 is, once you've got this food, let's get the pesticides and the toxins out. Some of the most toxic laden, most glyphosate laden foods are kale, chickpeas, and so people can go kind of all out trying to get healthy food, but you have to be careful about what the healthy food has, what looks like healthy. You get into the deeper levels, which we're going to do tonight here. I think in talking with Carol about compost, there's these layers like, yay, compost. Okay, but what's in your compost? Okay, but. And I think the worry as we're doing, Grow Local with other people and trying to inspire, is not to get them glossy-eyed and kind of giving up. Where on this process can we say that's great and hold it? And then maybe there's more to learn as you feel comfortable. So that's level 2. Level 3 is what Fred's going to tell us a little bit more about how to measure. And that is that even if you're starting with this kind of food and you're getting the toxins out, the range of nutrient density is enormous. Foods are bred commercially, for their staying power when they travel, like tomatoes from Florida coming up, right? They want it to be juicy and hold its shape. And a lot are really favoring water content instead of nutrient density. So the color might be there, but a carrot is not a carrot is not a carrot. And we'll learn more about that. And I think we'll learn about what kind of practices assist. And then the next level is actually healing the soil to bring in the nutrient density. And so much of the toxins and pesticides are destroying the soil microbiome. It turns out the soil microbiome is necessary for the plants to extract the nutrients from the soil. And so, you can't really skip any step in nature's plan and expect to get where you're trying to go. So this is a far cry from that. All right, going into a little bit more detail here. This actually speaks a little bit to what we were talking about with Lily's yard. We had a beautiful video early on from Dimitra about how to plant a tree. This one is taking it from a different perspective. It's sort of how to kill a tree, and it tells all the things not to do. There is some comments that's too tiny to see, I know, but there are little comments about maybe prune so that the crisscrossing branches aren't wounding the tree and giving areas for insects or something else to come. And so there's things about pruning. What I especially liked about this, it reminded me of a children's book called How to Lose All Your Friends. And it's meant to be read, with a sort of tongue in cheek. The goal isn't to kill the tree, but to not do all the things that would. And there's a little bit of an error in that in my presentation about if you really want to be unhealthy, there's an awful lot that you can do regarding food. So it turned out as I was trying to title it, it's like, you can't say like how to kill, wait, no, this isn't really working. So I left it kind of loose. So going back to the more specifically on the food one, I think you all are familiar with the concept of the standard American diet. It's cheap, and I think it's kind of fun that the acronym is SAD, but it's cheap. But of course, it's only cheap in a very, very short term kind of a way. The expense goes to paying the doctor instead of the grocer or the farmer. The farm bill and stuff is keeping this artificially cheap. It's only cheap to feed this to cows. It's cheap to feed the corn to cows because we made the corn cheap. The cows aren't healthy when they eat the corn because they're supposed to be eating grass. So then we have to give them antibiotics and stuff because they're unhealthy, and just on and on it goes. So cheap really should be in quotes. I think convenient is another one that just seems so funny. We don't have time to eat healthy food, but if we got cancer and had to go for radiation, we'd find the time. I've talked to a lot of my colleague physicians who say that they came from a culture that said, if you don't have the disease yet, we'll keep following you until you get the disease, and then we'll start a medication, instead of trying to intervene on the road towards getting the disease and turning things around. So standard American diet is also about ultra processed. We talk about processed food. Of course, any kind of, you make, any blending is processing. It's anything that you do. So regular old processing is something that might be canning, and it might be baking. There's a lot of processed. I think the real danger is in what we call ultra processed. Over 60% of the standard American diet is processed. And it's mostly coming from the commodity crops like wheat, corn, and soy. The corn ends up being the high fructose corn syrup, which anybody who's not informed, that would be a high end, please avoid completely. Again, could go into more detail another time. The soy becomes soybean oil, which is not a healthy oil, as are the vegetable oils, something to avoid, the seed oils. Again, I could go into this in more detail, but ultra includes industrial formulations that turn these three into hundreds of thousands of food-like products that bear little resemblance to our evolutionary diet. And they're typically addictive even by design. You may have heard about the bliss point. which gets the sugar, the fat, and the salt just right. I mean, they're paying people high fees to come up with the amount that will entice the body for reasons that are evolutionarily sound, but sort of hijacked for this to want more. You may be familiar with the neurotransmitter dopamine. Dopamine, I consider the Oreo neurotransmitter because it sets you up like an Oreo might. You know, that was good. Can I have some more? That was good. Can I have some more? And you're just right on that edge, and that's exactly what people are trying to get us to get stuck in. I think of if you've heard of serotonin, that's kind of the happy, calm neurotransmitter. I think of that as the broccoli one. You eat the broccoli and you say, that was good, thanks. You know, it's a satisfying place as opposed to a craving for more. Abundant empty calories. Americans are the most overfed yet undernourished people in the world. Foreign policies focused on food quantity, not food quality, and overconsumption also favors the industry profits, which overlaps, of course, with the poor nutrient density issue, which we'll get into again with the bionutrient density monitor. This is clearly linked to the industrialization of American agriculture. It turns on hunger hormones as a survival mechanism, searching for the needed cofactors of the essential metabolic biochemical reactions. So there's 4 different kind of reasons why people get hungry. One of it is a search for the nutrients that you need. And if you eat a lot that doesn't have them, the body still kind of finishes that and says, oh, wait, no, that's not it. Still go out and find it for me. And if it's nowhere, there's this overconsumption without providing the nutrients that are important. This one I won't take the time to read, but it's wonderful. Michael Pollan's The Omnivore's Dilemma kind of goes into more details about the corn subsidies and such. If anybody wants, they can screenshot it, or it'll be in the, able to get, but it goes into more detail about what I was referencing. We've just threatened our whole, everything that we were supposed to get right. So I made a little more comment about this earlier, but food quality has been compromised in the pursuit of agricultural productivity. So let's see, I got to move you guys out of the way. But yield enhancing technologies of industrial agriculture have reduced the nutrient content over the past 50 years. And this is just kind of identifying some of the different ways that it ends up happening. And we've talked before about regenerative agriculture being a very, very different concept. The no-till and all of that to support the microbiome. Here's another, the food processing and distribution industry prioritizes profit over the health, ethics, and social justice, often referencing their legal fiduciary responsibility to maximize return for stockholders. I like to say I too am a company, and my stockholders are my 37 trillion cells, and they also like to profit from this process. So the differentiated nutrient density. So here I just went a deep dive on one. It's the magnesium. I've mentioned it before, but it's one that I think has made such a difference to my patients, my family, my patients' families and such, that I picked this as a deep dive. So if you really want to do a body in, deplete the micronutrients so metabolism can't function as it's intended. And these are some of the things that metabolism is doing, and it needs all of the pieces for. Here's a visual of the metabolic pathways. Some of you may have heard of the Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle. That's the tiny circle in here, and that's what you get taught in high school. All of this is going on too, and magnesium's needed for between 350 and 600. We're always learning more. So for those biochemical reactions to occur. So if you really want to do somebody in, be sure to deplete their magnesium by taking common acid blocking agents. Anybody who's on anything that blocks acid for their stomach, which is like one of the top profit pharmaceuticals. Even things like Tums over the counter shuts down the stomach acid, which doesn't let you absorb the magnesium, iron, vitamin B12, proteins, the things that you need to make the body work. It also, in the microbiome concept, the having not enough stomach acid means that the microbes that come in and should be killed don't get killed, and then they populate further down and cause other kind of digestive issues. There's new information that sinus troubles, if your stomach acid isn't officially strong enough and healthy enough, again, I can respond to some of these specifics with questions later, that while you're sleeping at night from a sinus low-grade chronic infection, that postnasal drip can populate the stomach and get past the stomach and cause kind of digestive issues. Diuretics will also deplete magnesium, and the number of people on that is also enormous. So that's even if you were to eat enough, which people don't, you can not be, once you put it in your mouth, it's not exactly getting absorbed into your body. So there's many, many, many steps, and we have to take in enough that it can make it through all these other ones. So, you know, in this kind of, I guess it's kind of ugly humor, but you won't be alone if you don't take enough magnesium. Most people are deficient. This is a list of what kinds of symptom or diagnoses come when you don't have enough magnesium. When I do a screen of these with my patients, you know, everybody who comes in with one tends to have a couple of others. And then if you're really going to get ill, you might want to make sure that you ignore all the early signs of magnesium deficiency. What I think is so beautiful about the body is if you take the symptoms as a clue to what the body might be needing, it's trying to speak. And if you're feeling constipation, it's an opportunity to replete the need. And then you get beneficial effect for all these other things. Kids will come in with menstrual cramps. We'll get them on magnesium. And the next thing you know, their anxiety is less, they're sleeping better, they're less irritable, and their headaches have gone. Back to that first slide, there's rhyme and reason to the need of all these. So a little bit deeper dive on the soil microbiome. The healthy gut-brain connection is enormous. It's just an exploding part of research right now. We're learning that some people call the gut the second brain. I think many are calling it the first brain. It's really running the show, as are the microbiome, not just in the gut. You know, there's bacteria in every part of us. You guys can read some of these in more detail, but the fact that 90% of our serotonin, the happy, calm neurotransmitter, is made in the gut with the bacteria. 50% of the dopamine is really important, and it's making our vitamins. So humans eat the plants, which feed the gut microbiome. From there, you know, if you're eating the foods that are feeding the wrong bacteria, you can end up with all kinds of difficulties. I may have mentioned before, I had a patient with came to me with bulimia, and that's a pretty long haul treatment. We figured out that she had an overgrowth of candida, which is a yeast that belongs in the gut, but it belongs in a biodiverse gut where the balance, as we've talked about before, the diversity helps the balance be successful. We treated her overgrowth, and she doesn't have bulimia anymore. And that's a profound thing. We need to get to the root cause more often. Again, it very common in psychiatric diseases. Let's see, we're winding up here. Plants make sugars out of photosynthesis, and then we use the sugars to attract they use the sugars to attract the beneficial microbes to the rhizosphere, which helps the plant get the nutrients. There's an exchange, and then we eat the nutrients, and then we do the same exchange using our microbiome. So I think of disease as a clue to be pursued, not an insect or an organism to be poisoned. Another thing I remember about Carol saying early on was the kind of farmers who go out and they don't say, what am I going to kill today? They say, what am I going to help live today, right? We should be doing that ourselves. So soil is similar. Again, you can read the words. It just is a profound thing. Just as pre and probiotics feed and improve the gut health, compost does the same for the soil. And again, we've talked about all these additives that can bring the mycorrhizome in. So I thought if I had a second, I would do a quick deep dive on one particular bacteria in our gut. It's Akkermansia muciniphila. And when Priscilla was talking about the castles and how they kind of have other various ways, we talked about the the hedgerow and such. The part of the purpose of the moat was to keep people away, right? Make something that makes it hard to enter. And the mucus in our gut is part of what's meant to protect us and hold the microbiome. Our cells, the lining between our gut and our body is one cell thick. And I think it also speaks to what kind of food the evolution intended us to have. It should be pretty clean food. There's not a lot of protection there. And so this one is one of the good guys. And if you don't have enough, these are some of the diseases that there's research to connect it to. And then the kinds of things that will increase your akkermansia, the things that, we're literally planting in Lily's yard and in mine, the raspberries, the blackberries, the pomegranate and cranberries, I think, are on the top of the list. The reason I capitalize pecans is I just love the story as the North Carolina is coming north in terms of the climate. Plant your pecan tree now, because in 20 years we'll be North Carolina and it'll be full of nuts. So but I don't know if you guys know, there's a test called the GI map, which is actually using that PCR genetic information, and you can do a stool test, and that is how we figured out the Candida yeast overgrowth in the patient. So I will unshare my screen. I think, how do I do that? Somebody else share their screen and get me out. I'm sure that'll help. And I'm happy to take questions.
That's great, Linda. A lot of really good information.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
It's going to take me a while to digest it. I'll have to go back and watch the video again.
Digest it.
I popped through a lot. There's such deep stuff we could do on every piece of it.
Yeah.
If I can't, am I still sharing the whole screen?
Nope.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good.
So what would you recommend, if you want to read more, what would you recommend?
Well, I mean, there's a couple different things. Let me see. One of the best sources, I think, I don't know if people are interested in podcasts, but the Doctor's Pharmacy, FARMACY, podcast with Mark Hyman is just fabulous. I mean, he covers all this kind of stuff. I quoted on one of the slides, but there's also Regenerative Agriculture podcast that, it's just doing all the crosshairs between all of these themes. It's talking about health and the health of the plant and the health of the soil. And it just so comes together so beautifully. Mark Hyman also wrote a book, Food Fix, which covers the, from the industry to the food to the health. He's really looking at it from all sides, and it's sort of how to fix the economy, the health, the climate. I mean, it's really, to me, this just breeds hope. Regenerate is another book by Paul Hawken. And it's a very, very hopeful, upbeat. He's got a website, Regenerate. The resources right now are endless. It's all new stuff, but it's just booming. So if anything more specifically you're interested in, I'd be happy to, take it offline or have the conversation here. It's critical to all of us.
Linda, can you put a list together?
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll put in the chat the first one I mentioned, just so that people can have it. Accessible, really good. Isn't that fun? You spell pharmacy with an F and they correct it.
All right. So let me take a few minutes to talk about this meter, which is very connected to what Linda's been saying. So what Linda has been talking about has not been completely proven yet. It's not done science.
There's a lot out there.
Yes, there is a lot, but it's in terms of tying it all together
Yeah.
and saying this is if the soil is like this and the crops are like this, and then that connection.
Oh, that connection is, right, you're exactly right.
Hasn't been
That
proven
connection
yet.
is- There are people doing big research on it now, but you're right about that part. Yes.
So, and part of that research is this organization called Bionutrient Institute. And it's started by Dan Kitteridge, and he's out in Barre, Mass. And his parents had been executive director of NOFA Mass for decades. And so Dan grew up on a organic farm, and he's very fascinated about nutrient qualities of food. And so he developed this meter, which you see in this photograph, and this meter right here that I'm holding. And this meter is built to measure the nutrient qualities of food. And I cannot forward this. I can't forward the screen.
Can't do what? What are you trying to do?
Get to my next slide.
Oh.
Oh, well. All right, I think I'll just talk.
Just stop sharing and try again.
Yeah, well, I don't want to take too long trying to figure that out. So, the problem is that there has been no actual studies of what is what is quality in food, and how do we get to that? And a lot of it has to do with the food system, not really pursuing that. They are, as Linda had said, they are interested in volume and food that makes you feel full. So they measure it by output per acre, not by nutrition per acre. And so this meter, at this point, it shines a LED light on, at this point, 10 different crops. I was going to rely on the slide on the specific crops. There's kale and carrots and beets and lettuce and bok choy and wheat and oats and a few other things. And the light measures the reflection off of the plant, and it measures ultraviolet light, visual light, and infrared light, and it can measure off the reflection 16 different elements like calcium, potassium, copper, zinc, things like that, and antioxidants and polyphenols. And it's able to compare, say, a range of carrots, and it can tell you the different, within those carrots, which has higher density, higher nutrient density than the other carrots. And then you figure out where those carrots came from. Whether it's grown in a regenerative way, in a no-till way, in a organic way, or conventional way, or hydroponically. And then you match that up with the density, the nutrient density levels. And you can do this at the farm. You can do it at the grocery store. You can do it in your fridge or in your garden. You can do it the day you buy it, or you can do it after it's been sitting in your fridge for a week or two. You can, they're starting to do it, experiments on the quality of produce that you can get at Whole Foods, or say you go to inner city neighborhood where there's food deserts, and the quality of food, the quality of the lettuce that you can buy in those neighborhoods, and can tell the difference. So slowly they're able to collect that data and start to make those connections and say, we suspect, at this point, we suspect that, as a quote that Linda had was, healthy soils creates healthy food, creates healthy people, but we don't know 100% for certain. But this kind of research will help lead that. So what we're trying to do is, we have the meter, and we're going to, over the winter into the spring and next year, for now in the winter time, we'll go into the grocery stores, and different grocery stores, different places where you can get these vegetables, and take these measurements. And in the spring, in the summer, through the farmers market and the farmers at the market, we can take those measurements in those areas. And then the Bionutrient Institute has works with a couple of labs in the US and one lab in Europe. We'll send all the data to them. At some point, they're going to be able to also take readings of the soil itself. And for the farmers or the gardeners who we take readings of, we can collect soil samples too, to put it together, just to have more data. And we'll be crowdfunding or crowdsourcing the information that will help determine what kind of growing medium is the best way to grow nutrient-dense foods.
Brad, have you been able to play with this instrument at all and see anything?
We just got it, so we're just learning how to use it. One of their principal, the Bionutrient Institute's principle is complete transparency. So they have a lot of information of how to use this, what to do, how to report. So at this point, we're just learning about it. And they have a whole community online to share experiences. And hopefully we can add to that and this will be part of Grow Local.
That's cool.
It's just a way of, Carol's been talking about all the microbiome in the soil and how that symbiotic relationship is so important with the plants. And this is just taking the next step. Yeah.
So Fred, did you ask to be part of a study or did you buy the tool? How did you get involved?
So I went to one of NOFA's winter conferences, and Dan was doing a workshop on this when he started this. So it's like 2-3 years ago, and like there were 6 people in the class, and it was great. So this is second generation, and so I got Grow Local to buy this so we could play with it.
That's great. It's exciting. Be fun to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if you have vegetable gardens in your backyard, you can you can play for. So this can be used by homeowners, consumers, and farmers. So farmers can use it to help them determine
Sorry for that
food. What's that? Yeah, like if they want to change the way they grow food, it's like this will help them make their decision.
Fred,
So
can I ask?
Oh, go ahead, Margot.
Is it for any kind of cell phone?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right
I thought
now it's for Android only. So this connects to your phone. There's a app that you download onto your phone. The readings go into your phone, and then you print out, spreadsheets, and you send that information to the labs.
So do you get results that you can read right away, or do you have to wait to get them analyzed?
I think you can get the results you can read. It's just that the lab does the soil testing and things like that, and they aggregate. I think there are like 150 or so different groups that are doing this, farmers and groups like ours. And so they aggregate all that information.
But some people might be sending the soil sample in with the meter results, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, if they're going to gardens or farms.
Right.
But I think if you go to Whole Foods, you have to do a little more research to find out, where these carrots came from, how they were grown, that kind of thing.
So they really want the soil with the nutrient results, right? Nutrient results there. They want to get both.
Yeah, the more the better, but a lot of times you're not going to be able to get soil.
Right. So if you just wanted to know it from a consumer's point of view, is it a useful tool?
Yes, exactly. You can go into Whole Foods and it's like, oh, this carrot is like, and this carrot, oh yeah. So the thing is, that a lot of the first generation findings, they found that there have been some produce that was grown conventionally was a lot better than that grown organically.
Oh.
Probably because of the soil it was grown in.
Right. Organic does not mean high bionutrient. It's a step in the right direction, but
yeah,
the soil is missing care, and a lot of it is still till and all that stuff.
I mean, just comparing Stop and Shop vegetables to the farmer's market vegetable, I think just right there, that would be so fascinating.
Yeah. So a lot of these, like the polyphenols, is determines taste, and so at this point we can taste the difference. When something's really good, you know that it's more nutrient dense. But, scientists are figuring that out, and they're able to engineer at the molecular level the produce that they grow in California or Chile, and they know that they have to ship it the other side of the world. They're starting to engineer those crops for taste. So,
Yep.
Yeah, and that's not enough.
yeah.
So have you tried any specific food yet? How about, did you
Not yet.
try in your own garden or not?
Not yet. It's just getting a handle on this.
Okay. Well, next month we'll be looking for some results there.
Yeah.
I got broccoli and cauliflower, and I got a lot of stuff growing pretty nicely.
Oh,
Interesting to see.
So do you have a chart? Is there a chart that's published that says what a good density is for certain foods?
yeah, I think so. I haven't dug that far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's what you kind of want that, right? If you're gonna
Yes, exactly.
do you get the results quick enough that you could actually be in the grocery store? And
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, off of your phone.
I mean, it's like I'm thinking, okay, you go into Stop and Shop, you're looking at their food and their prices, and they say, okay, poor density. You can look at your chart. Nope, terrible. And then you go across the farmer's market, right?
Exactly.
Right there instead, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, this is a marketing tool.
That's great, Fred. That's gonna be really fun.
Yeah.
Are we talking about compost today or next time?
Next time.
Next time, yeah. I'd like to see how you're doing, Linda. Have you started out?
Yeah, Carol came by today. We put the thermometer in. I've got some work to do before the next one. But it's good and dark and brown, but I think it's actually pretty black. It's just more like mulch at this phase than pure compost. So it wasn't getting hot enough. I'm going to add some coffee and some more kitchen scraps, which I'm blending first, and see if I can get the same pile to heat up more now that I have a thermometer. It makes it much more exciting. I'd like to tip my hat also to the group that went and got seeds for the summer. I planted a whole bunch of pollinators. It's just exciting, guys. It's just so exciting.
You say something to look forward to. Check out what this is when you have it all mixed right.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
felt like, I felt like a
zone.
little kid when I was like, yay!
I'm going to get there. I am. And then once I have my technique, I'll share what it takes to get there.
Good.
But I'm well on the way.
So what happened with all the rain in your compost pile? Did you have
So what I ended up doing with my pile, I ended up getting a barrel that flips over itself.
Okay.
And it's a plastic one, and I'm going to compare that to other approaches. But that's the one that I put together about 3 weeks ago, and so it was completely protected from the rain.
Okay. Yeah.
The pile next to it, not so much.
Yeah, I had mine out, in the yard. I'm always adding leaves to it because it gets very, very wet. So I always try to find the dry stuff.
This is the most popular one that's sold by towns. And actually, Linda, I was able to place a second order. So I'll get, so this is what I'm going to get. And
Okay.
This thing is the aerator.
Yeah.
So depending on your pile, I have a bunch of piles at the retreat center that it's just tough to keep it moist. So whenever I know it's going to rain, I actually strategically kind of poke holes in it.
So it will get the water.
And aerate it. And so that, and when I pull up, it's like I see little patches that are dry. So then the rain, because otherwise when I've come there, I just noticed that it just mats the top with the rain. So it's been very interesting trying to coordinate.
Carol, do you still want the, are you interested at all in the chicken manure?
Yeah, actually, I was in Salem, New Hampshire this weekend, and I was like, darn, I should have coordinated stopping by. I didn't realize how close it is.
Yeah, let me know if you need any more information, and I'll send you. I'll get you in touch with my daughter.
Okay, because actually I just got like 3 different types of bins. So within a week, I'll be able to add the consideration of the chicken manure.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah.
Okay, it's 8:30.
Nicely done.
Great.
Perfect time. So Linda, quick update on how your yard is going. How's
Oh,
it?
it's just so fun. It's great. I've got, I replaced 2 of the hollies that had kind of died, although we haven't totally given up on them. I put them over by the compost. I have an area now I call the nursery. It's kind of the infirmary for the ones that somebody else might have given up on. But we replaced them with a really nice tall hinoki and then a little baby hinoki. So there's this lovely little like mother-daughter thingy going on in the and gorgeous, so gorgeous. The leaves are turning, things are growing. As I said, the broccoli and the cauliflower is just huge. I think it's grown a couple of inches in just this week's rain. It's just to see the colors change. I'm planting some more pollinators that we just got the seeds for and having fun thinking about what's going to come in later. It's been delightful. I do think that, Lily, to your point about how we need a specialist to come and talk to us about pruning fruit trees and other trees, I really think it would be fascinating to get somebody who would walk around one of these, my yard, your yard, anybody else's, and kind of comment on, if the leaves get brown, is that a sign of a healthy turning of the season, or does that mean that there's a disease and it needs to be, supported with more nutrients? And what I've learned is as long as there's buds, as long as there's new growth, you kind of leave it alone. And that just felt a lot better, even on some of the trees that I thought were a problem. So I think there's a deepening of the learning every season. And that's part of fun. It's a little bit like raising children.
Yeah.
I will suggest a name for you. I'll email you some names.
Thank you. That'd be fabulous. Yeah, I would love that.
So, especially because each plant has their own personality and needs.
So much. Yeah. No, and it's been fun. Like I see little worms or green things on the broccoli, and I don't know, is that supposed to be like going to be a caterpillar and I should be leaving it because it's got a good moth thingy, or is that one of the ones that I'm not supposed to be feeding? I got a couple of answers over at Mahoney's, and then I'm like flicking the things off. But I don't know. I took some pictures along the way. We haven't had a chance to go back over that much, but of all the wonderful wildlife, I had a grasshopper on my leg when I was seeing a patient, a 14-year-old in the yard, and she's like, it's coming for therapy. It's so fun to have, there's so much of a spirit of kids should be out in nature more, that to come to the doctor's office and be in nature all at once has really been delightful. Parents love it.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all good. Who'd have thunk?
Well, thank you, Fred. Thank you, Linda, for your
Thank you.
and Carol and Priscilla.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. And
Yeah.
if you want to come to our next organizing meeting, let us know.
Do you have a date right now, Fred?
We take a week to decompress and then we'll start again in a couple of weeks. All right.
That's
Bye.
good, guys.
All right.